If you have pinching in the front of your hips when you raise your leg up and or move it out or in, try this potent 1-2 exercise combo that should give you some really nice results immediately. First, what causes this? Generally, when someone has a pelvis that's forward or backwardly oriented, that would be an anterior or posterior pelvic tilt, but more commonly an anterior pelvic tilt that's significant enough, that's going to restrict the ability for this femur to glide and move into flexion without running into the rim of the acetabulum or hip socket right here. The most common presentation is a pelvis that is forward and externally rotated. That's going to limit the ability for the femur to move into flexion without running into something. So what we want to do is help bring the pelvis back and create internal rotation of the femurs, which is going to open up space for that femur to move out into external rotation and back into internal rotation without restriction or pinching. To set up for this, we need a ball that's going to keep our knees in line with our toes in a standing position. And then we're going to get about 1 foot length away from the wall, just like that. And then what we're going to do is place the ball in between the knees. And now here's the key. We need to get our feet outside of our knees. So the amount is going to vary depending on the individual, but basically you want to get your knees slightly going in, and then you're going to put a little squeeze on that ball. If you feel any crampiness on the outside of your hips as you do that, then you know your feet are too far outside your knees, and I would adjust that, move in a little bit more. But the key is you want to feel your weight in your heels. And we have something set up here so that gives him an object to reach for. But what he's going to do is he's going to squeeze that ball. The amount's going to vary depending on the individual. Could be a 2 to about a 7 out of 10. And we'll cue you as to what that should be. But generally around the 2 to 4 out of 10 is where you want to be here. And then you want to keep your low back flat on the wall. Pelvis comes off. Upper back is off. And exhale through your mouth like you're sighing air out. And what you're going to do is just finish that exhale until you feel your side abs engage. You're going to maintain that side ab tension, and you're going to inhale through your nose, and you're going to keep reaching. There you go. And you're going to exhale through the mouth again. You might want to reach just very, very subtly further, or you can just maintain that reach. But that object is just there to cue you to maintain that reach. You don't have to use something like this. It's just helpful for beginners. And then you're going to go through breaths of that. Exhale all the air out as if you're sighing, because it's like your mouth is a faucet. The more open your mouth is, the more air you can get out. And then maintain that tension in your abs. Inhale through the nose. Feel all this back open up. So to summarize, what you should feel is your feet outside of your knees. You should feel a little squeeze on that ball. Just your low back is up against the wall. And your weight is in your heels, and you're just going to take breaths in that position. The most common mistake in this activity is people are going to stand up as they inhale. So this is by far what is going to happen the most, because people are going to not want to expand their back rib cage. So you've got to maintain that reach, and you've got to make sure that you are maintaining it during the full inhale. That's going to give you that sensation of the space between your shoulder blades and spine opening up. The other thing is that people come too far onto their toes. They forget that they're supposed to feel their heels because they're trying to open up the back and push our center mass back onto our heels. They forget about that. They go on their toes. So make sure that your whole foot is flat, but the weight is mostly in the heels. If you're having a hard time maintaining a full exhale, what you can do is hold a balloon in your left hand, and then you can just reach with the right arm. Everything is still the same. Exhale all that air out, and then put your tongue on the roof of your mouth to prevent air backflow out of that balloon. Maintain the tongue on the roof of the mouth as you inhale through your nose. Exhale, boom, and blow up that as much as you can. Now, depending on whether your issues are on the right or the left side, that can vary because we have natural underlying human asymmetry, which biases us towards being in the right side. The right hip is generally more relatively internally rotated, and the left more relatively externally rotated. You can check out my content on that specific pattern in this link I will put up above and down below in the description. Now, if you're feeling more pinch on your right side, try this exercise, because this is going to help open up space for the right femur to move into genuine external rotation better. To set up for this, we need to be in a left side lying position with a towel a couple inches thick underneath the lowest portion of the left ribs right here. And ideally, we have something underneath the head, so we're very passively side bent to the right, just very passively, but you can use a towel, yoga block, or you can support your head. But if you're supporting your head, just let your head relax. You don't want to actively hold your neck up. That's not what we want at all. Okay, now we need to make sure we have a straight line from the right heel to the right hip to the right shoulder. And to initiate this, we're going to reach this leg that way, And we need to make sure that our hips stay neutral and tucked underneath us as we reach. And that's going to help us create some separation between the left abs and this towel roll right here. Or should at least, at minimum, help you feel those left abs engage. So we need the left abs on without arching the back. Maintain that tuck. Now we should feel left abs, and as we roll the right hip forward very slightly to square up the hips with the wall in front of us, we need to turn the toes up as far as we can get them without the right hip rolling back at all. If the right hip rolls back to any extent, we have gone too far. So for Trevor, that's right about there. As he does that, he should feel his right lower butt cheek, glute max, and outside hip where the glute med is engaged. And for some people, we're just gonna have you sit here, hang out, and breathe. If it helps you, put your hand on the ground, and you can push to get those left abs a little bit more. Now the progression from this is going to be, can you lift the right foot up without the right hip rolling back to any extent? It's gotta stay forward. That should help you feel way more glute max on the right side. Your left abs need to stay engaged and your hips need to stay tucked as you do that. Common mistake is people are gonna engage their neck. So because their head is supported, people have a tendency to really crank their neck to one side or the other and use that to lift the leg, make sure the neck stays relaxed. The other thing we're gonna see is people are gonna shrug the shoulder or roll it forward in an attempt to keep the right hip forward, but don't do that. Make sure that the shoulder stays out of the air. The last thing is that we need to make sure that the toes stay up and they don't start to roll down. Again, if you can't get them all the way up too much, that's okay. Just as much as you're capable of doing. If you feel the pinch on the left side, try this exercise, because this is gonna help move the femur back on the left side so there's more room for it to do what it needs to do. What we're gonna do here is start in an all fours position with our hands underneath our shoulders and our knees underneath our hips. And we're going to initiate this by hooking this knee around that back knee right there. So we're trying to stretch the left hip in this instance, so we're gonna hook the right knee behind the left knee. And then what we're gonna do is bring our left elbow to our left knee like that, and we're gonna reach the right arm, actively slide it overhead as much as we can to our end range without feeling any discomfort whatsoever. So right now in this position, he should feel a stretch in his back left hip capsule right here. It should be pretty noticeable. It's not like a muscular stretch, it's more of a bony stretch, if that makes sense. And now what we're gonna do, we're going to inhale through our nose and reach our right arm away from us and exhale through our mouth and slightly reach our right leg back. That's going to intensify the stretch in this back left hip right here. As he exhales, you might feel a little bit of left side abs. He's gonna do it again. Inhale, reach. Exhale, reach that right leg just a couple of inches back at a time. You don't wanna go too fast. You wanna just tempo it, go a couple of inches at a time. So you never wanna feel the front of your hip or the side of your hip really. You wanna feel it primarily in the back. Especially if you're feeling it in the front of the hip, you're probably going too far. So make sure that you're only feeling it right here, and you can ensure you're doing that by not overextending yourself really. So make sure your back isn't arching. There's a nice little round to it a little bit, slight tuck of the hips, if you will. And also, if you can't reach that right arm further forward overhead, or you can't reach this right leg back anymore, that's fine. Just maintain that position and just breathe and relax and then melt into that position. An alternative way we may have you do this exercise is to hold on to a rack with sort of the thumbs down grip on your right side here, or whatever side you're trying to stretch out. And that'll allow you to get some traction and actively sort of pull your thorax and your body away from that side and open it up more. That shouldn't result you in side bending to this side. It should be like you're opening this side bending to this side actually more. All the same cues still apply. So inhale, pull yourself away. Exhale, reach this right leg back just a tiny bit more until you get to your end range. Again, nothing in the front of the hip. Should be no junk on the side of your hip as well. Should be all exclusively in this back hip. So if you feel anything anywhere else, just bring this right leg more forward. Now you could even try both of those, and depending on whether your restriction is on the right or the left side, just make sure to do that one first. I would do these for about 2 sets of 5 to 10 slow, controlled, and full breath cycles.